Hmm.
Hi, and welcome to the Design Find the podcast. Here we'll be interviewing women in the design field and finding out about their journey and their opportunities now in the design field. Today we have Penelope, and she's going to be sharing with us her story. So, welcome, Penelope. So, I just wanted to ask you, what is your favorite thing about being an interior designer?
Favorite thing about being an interior designer? I think my favorite thing is that there's so many things involved in interior design. It's so personal that you have to develop so many, I wouldn't say skills, but you have to be very perceptive about your client and the project to make it successful and interesting. I mean, interior design, I would always call it like the soul of the project, because it's where you will involve, okay, what is the personality of the person that is going to, inhabit this area, or how you want them to feel. You have to create, even emotions and transport them to another place, sometimes with illumination or materials. So for me, that it is very intimate, and I love that.
Great. And then, so are you an interior designer or architect, or what do you prefer more?
Well, I am a trained architect. I studied architecture in Mexico and in Brazil. As I was telling you before, of course, I wanted to be more of like a larger scale architect. When I was younger, I thought I was going to design cities. That was my goal for studying architecture. But after a year in Brazil, when I studied in Curitiba, I encountered myself with interior design and interior architecture, and I found it so mesmerizing and irreverent and glamorous sometimes. I don't know, it caught my attention a lot. So after adjusting a little bit, when I came back to Mexico, I got the opportunity to come to China to actually develop into interior design, because for me it was something fairly new, I would say. But yeah, I just like to be called a designer. I think all design is connected, so for me, to be called a designer is okay.
Do you think like the switch from learning like trained architecture to being an interior designer was hard, or how did you learn to do that? Like, did you go to school for interior designer after? Or?
Yeah, I never went to school for interior design after. Of course, I have done like some like courses and gone through like a lot of seminars, and I do like to read a lot about interior design, a lot. Books, magazines, everything. I have even like the subscription to masterclass, so I like to like get a hold like of some of the speakers that are more interior designers, like Kelly Wersler and Jonathan Adler. It's not, I don't think it was such a big, difficult switch, I would say. At least I think from architecture to interior design is an easier switch than from interior design to architecture, because architecture requires a lot of technicality, of course, like founded technicality. In interior design, there's a lot of, I would say, inspiration, a style, and aesthetic that can be very personal from the designer that is doing it alongside with the client. And then architecture, you have to respect a lot of guidelines, a lot of systems, a lot of procedures. So I think the transition for me from architecture to interior design wasn't that difficult. Also because I was very into fashion before deciding to make the switch. So I think that helped me a lot also to make a smooth transition, because I was already very sensitive, for example, to fabrics, to colors, materials, prints, what's on trend, what's not on trend. So for me, I think the switch was fairly easy, but it did came with its challenges, because of course also interior design has a lot of constraints, because again, it's so minimal. Like you have to think about centimeters in here. Sometimes when you think of architecture, it's about meters, kilometers sometimes. In interior design, you have to think about millimeters. Will this actually fit? How big does this have to be so it looks actually quite nice? And it's the first thing you see, right? Like when you go inside a room, a hotel, the first thing you see is like the lamps, the color of the walls, the marble floors or the wood floors. All of that was thought, and it's sometimes a big pressure because you know that is what is going to transform this space into actually what the client wants. And if you don't make the effort or take the right approach, you might miss the mark to actually get a successful project.
How do you find the right balance between what the client wants and like your like artistic opinion?
Sometimes it can be tricky. I've for sure have encountered myself in those moments of that you're like, but I'm sure this is gonna look great. So you have to believe me. But then the client has another idea. For me, the way I found to approach this challenge sometimes is that I like to have a lot of communication with my clients. A lot. At the beginning, I always like to do very long briefings, and I try to become, I never want to say I become friends with my clients, but I like to become this person that they can trust, so they can tell me, okay, so exactly what is what you want. And you can tell me, you know what, I like being lazy. I like just reading in my couch. So then I know, okay, so I know this room has to relax this person. This room has to have an amazing, comfortable sofa and enough storage for all of his books. So then you start understanding that. Then you can direct your personal style into the functionality this client wants. Because if you're clear with communication, it's very easy to then imagine yourself in your client's shoes. And of course, they're hiring you for a reason, right? Like because they like your work, like they like what you previously have done, how you work. So of course there is, I always say like there's like a little bit give and take. Like the client sometimes will also, surrender themselves a little bit to be like, okay, fine, let's try this thing. I would have never thought of it, but let's try it. If it doesn't look good, then it doesn't look good. And you also as a designer, you have to be very professional to understand that you are a vessel for someone. You are there to serve a purpose for someone. Always speaking your mind and your voice and your style, but to meet an end goal that is what this client is looking for to feel comfortable.
What's your favorite like type of project? Do you like doing hotels? Do you like doing houses? What's your favorite?
I like a lot the hospitality side. I like the commercial side of design. My expertise is residential. That's what I do almost daily. I'm very well spoken in the language of residential design. But sometimes residential design, even though if it's so intimate because every client is different, it comes in a time that you start realizing, okay, let's say 2019, there was this trend about everybody wanted to have these huge leather sofas from Italy. So you knew every client wanted the same sofa in a different size, but everybody wanted the same. So sometimes it's difficult to feel that you're doing something very different for when you're doing residential projects, unless it's a huge deal and the client has a lot of budget to actually do something very interesting. But I do love working with residential clients because again, it becomes very intimate. So you understand them, you put yourself in the project, and then you also have to feel, okay, if I lived here, what would I do to make myself feel comfortable? And I like that. I like that is almost like working as an actor. I have to put myself in another person, another character, and then start thinking in that way. When it comes to commercials, for me now is what is becoming my favorite. Also, I think because I am in Shanghai, so things here are super interesting. Is the factor of the wow factor of doing super cool hospitality projects. As I showed you, I think previously before our talk, one of my latest projects here has been a collaboration with Coach, the brand, the American brand. So we did this amazing display in this very beautiful French lane house where we have a 2-meter Tyrannosaurus Rex in the front of the window where people is taking pictures every day. There's neon signs everywhere, combined with the exposed brick of this beautiful French house that we have in the French concession here in Shanghai. So it's becoming now my new favorite because it's a different creative process. It's not so much to serve a personal purpose, but it's now to think, okay, what emotions can we create? How disruptive we can be? And I feel after, COVID times and people being, now very restrained with so many regulations, everybody's telling you what to do, what you cannot do, when can you go out, what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat. It's super nice to now start creating things for people to start feeling whatever they want. So these type of projects, I always talk about a project here in Shanghai. It's not mine, but I always get this feeling when I'm in there. Is the W Hotel in Shanghai.
Oh yes,
every time, and every person that I talk to, there's no one that denies this. When you walk into that hotel, you don't feel you're in Shanghai anymore. You're somewhere else in the world. Where? I don't know. But you are somewhere else. You're immediately transported. And then you can make an experience however you want. You can have fun. You can get drunk. You can feel glamorous. You can have a very chill staycation. Or you can just go for the day just to look at the magnificent view they have in the terrace. So, yeah. I'm very expert on residential, love it, but I am transitioning a little bit more into wanting to do more commercial projects.
So what are you doing now? Like I heard you're working at Indigo. Can you explain a bit about what you do?
So I am the head of design for mainland China in Indigo. Indigo Living is a Korean company and that mainly started doing just retail furniture. I would say mid-level, high-level furniture, mid-century style with some modern twists. But then a few years ago, more than a few years, probably around 8 to 10 years ago, the interior design department started to develop because we see that at least in China and in Hong Kong, there is a big demand for serviced apartments, for hospitality projects. So it was a good approach for us to tackle our clients, not only offering here's a sofa, you can put it in your service apartment, but let us do the full project, and then of course we will sell you also the furniture, and then we get more involved, and then we get at the end probably the end result that we're looking for, in a broader scope. So mainly anything, at least in China, anything that has any involvement with design, even marketing, visual merchandising, all the interior design projects, either B2C or B2B, I have my hands around them. And I have a great team that works with me, a few designers, logistic people, and business developers that are, we are this team that we are always running around. But yeah, that's normally what we do in here.
What is something you want to see more in your design field?
Something that I would like to see more in the design field. I would like to see more people thinking a little bit more about sustainable construction, architecture, furniture. I think day by day we see how we are a little bit, destroying this world. And there is so many ways to become sustainable if you invest some time, effort, and money to develop those ways. In Indigo, what we do try to do is that some of our collections, we do try to design them with recycled materials or sustainable materials, or a lot of natural, for example, fabrics that are easy to maintain, so then you don't have to, change furniture so fast. We are not into the fast, let's say, fast fashion of furniture. We don't like that. We don't want to sell you a piece of furniture that in a year you're gonna have to come and buy another one because it's already destroyed. We'd rather sell you a piece that will stay with you for a long, long time. And then there's this process of discarding furniture becomes smaller and smaller. But yeah, I would like to see more sustainable approach. In general, yeah, I would like to see more people interested in exploring other styles and I would say, like, I don't know, cultural backgrounds in terms of style, because I feel like for a few years, interior design has been a little bit stagnant in the way of, like, there's very specific way how people want to design, at least the carcass of, for example, service apartments or hotels. Little by little, you can see, some disruptions, like people are welcoming very interesting and provocative design. I would like to see more of that. I think we are in a time where we are passing through a pandemic that has changed everything in our lives, not only economically, but also I feel mentally. Everybody has been shaken a little bit, and we maybe have other priorities now in our lives, or we have restructured our priorities and also our feelings and how we want to now live our lives. And I've always thought that design is it is a powerful tool to evoke emotions and create these spaces that you can, represent yourself or represent something that it's within you. So yeah, I would love to see that. Let's see how the next few years go.
Do you have any tips for people, like the way people place their houses? And because a lot of people spent a lot of time at home this year. So do you have any tips on like how to make your house more of a more different feeling, or how to make it more productive because people are working at home, and how to like have that work-life balance? Do you have any tips for that?
Yes, of course, a lot. So during the pandemic, I moved apartments twice, which is horrible. I hate moving out. I think I finally found the apartment I'm going to stay for a while. The whole moving process is terrible because the packing and the unpacking can be very stressful. But then when you get home and then, you are there, you're sitting down and you just want to relax, unwind, or work at home. I find it so relaxing when everything that is on site has, for me at least, a decorative purpose. Anything that is, for example, you have something where you store all the cables of the TV, or where you have all your remote controls or documents, all of these things for me need to be hidden. I don't need to see that mess. For me, a clean apartment that only has, some decorative items, everything is in, like, I love boxes. I like to box everything in. So buy a few boxes, put everything in, label, this box is for cables, this box is for kitchen stuff, and just put everything in and store it. Even like when you store like very clean, it gives you this satisfaction of like, my house is clean, now I can sit down and relax. And another tip is, for me, illumination is everything. Like, a room that is badly lighted, you can physically feel I want to move out from here. So for me, natural light is very important. But also, I know, some apartments don't have the best natural light access, and there's sometimes not a lot that you can do about it. But something you can do is always find little, ways of putting a lamp in a corner, hiding like a little lamp behind that TV so it lights from behind, like all this indirect light that creates an ambience for me is so relaxing, and I like that. Keep it clean and keep it well lighted.
What's a trend you love and trend that you hate that you've been seeing a lot in interior design?
A trend I love. Well, I'm very into colors. I love anything colorful. I sometimes marketing beats me, and if I see anything packaged like in a beautiful color, I immediately will go and, what is this? Maybe I will not buy it, but at least I had it in my hands.
Draws your attention.
I do love color a lot, and I like funky things. I love funky decoration. It doesn't have to make sense because life doesn't make sense. Don't try to always make a rationality about it. Just something that makes you happy. And there is this interior designer that I love called Kelly Wersler. She's American, and she has like a balance of making things that are extremely exuberant, but yet elegant, but yet super funky. Like, what is the decoration that you put there? But at the end of the day, it's like it actually works for the apartment. So for me, this trend of maximizing decoration, but minimizing the mess. For me, this trend of like minimalistic decoration, it's minimal maximal decoration, I would call it. It's super fun for me. Like, for example, putting a table that is full of vases that are all deep. I love that. I love that because creating like a little gallery at home, for me, it's always like kind of like cool. It's like gives like this little coolness to the house if you have the space to do it. And a trend that I hate, I mean, I wouldn't say I hate trends. It's just like trends that sometimes to me don't make sense. I do not like, what I don't like, I have to be very careful about this. I don't like, I'll be honest, I will talk from my heart. I don't like when people just go very safe with color. Just like, okay, we're gonna make everything white. I don't like this trend because at some point it's very minimalistic. Let's do everything white, everything super simple, no molding around, no details on the floors, very simple light, even white light, not even amber, that makes it a little bit more warm. It's a trend I don't like because it makes the place so empty. Yeah, you can help out with decoration, but at the end of the day, sometimes they also do decoration that is very simple and black and white. To me, it's too clinical, and it feels like I'm in a hospital, in a clinic, and it doesn't express anything to me. So I like to come to places that express something to me, even though what they're trying to tell me, I don't understand it at the beginning, but at least a journey for me to be like, looking at one place and be like, oh, this is super interesting. And then look in another place and like, oh, look at that little lamp. It's also super cute. So I like that. I like to be entertained in a space.
What do you think is a piece of like furniture art that really makes the house, that like gives it such a wow factor? Like if you're telling people if you have one thing to buy, what should you like spend money on?
Oof. Okay. First of all, and I think this goes for everybody, it doesn't matter if you have the biggest house, the smallest house, always buy a good mattress. First of all, my first advice to everybody in the world, buy a good mattress. You spend so much time in the bed. Always spend money on a mattress. It doesn't have to be the most expensive one, but at least buy something that is decent. But apart from comfort and health, because sleeping is very important, I mean, it always depends on the type of apartment and the size that you have and the type of like height that you have. But in general, I always like a very nice piece, like one nice sofa, like one very, very cool sofa. You can always play around with that because you can, for example, I love leather a lot, but I cannot have too many things because I have a cat. and he's a little bit he doesn't care of my feelings and what I want or not. And I found a way to keep him away from that sofa, but I have this very beautiful leather sofa that is in a corner on my living room that I don't even use that much because I'm always on the L-shaped sofa in front of the TV when I'm in the living room. But every time like I see it, it's like it makes sense. And then when I have someone at home, they can see it there. It's super nice. So I always like to see. So just continuing artwork. So artwork is very important, but for me it's very intimate because I like collecting pieces when I travel. So for example, in my house, every piece of art is something that I collected when I was somewhere traveling, either if it was a trip even here in China or something that I bought myself when I was even walking in the streets of Shanghai. It has to be very personal to me. I don't normally buy, for example, a piece of art in a home, shopping mall or something like that.
Must have a story.
Nothing wrong. Yeah, nothing wrong about it. People like them because they like the graphics about, there's for example, IKEA has some very cool photography and graphics. I think that is super nice. It has to speak to you. Artwork has to speak to you. I think artwork is another window to the personality of the person that lives in that place. So it's very important that it's art, the art in your house. It doesn't matter if it's a painting or a little sculpture or vases. It's always fun if you have like a little story behind it. I bought it when I was in here and I saw this man in the street selling it or something like that.
So you like to travel a lot?
I used to like it.
Yeah. So have you been able to go to any places in China? Because I know with COVID, it's hard to travel out of China.
Yeah. Even within China is difficult because there are certain provinces that will ask you for COVID tests and for example, as a foreigner in certain areas in China, I'm not allowed in all the hotels, so I have to check. Okay, can I go to this place and will there be an hotel that will accept me as a foreigner? But yeah, I mean, lately for work, I'm always traveling to Beijing or Wuhan or in the Shanghai province. But before COVID, yes, I love to travel around the Asia Pacific area, and of course in Mexico, I would travel a lot in the country because it's huge and there's so many cool, interesting places to go to. Love the beach, love hiking, love the outdoors, but also sometimes when I just want to relax, I just want to do a nice place with a nice hotel that has access to a good pool, and sometimes I just need like 3 days to relax, and that's also okay.
So where do you find the most inspiration?
Much inspiration that I find. There's a couple of sources of inspiration for me. I've always said music to me is something very important. I sometimes I cannot find myself working without music, and sometimes I can see my Spotify list and I can see like my like songs, and I can see phases of my life like divided in batches of like type of music that I liked in that moment. I remember like one day I was saying like I was so into like Edith Piaf at some point, like French classical music. And then there was a point where I was like super into like Kanye West and like all of these American rappers. And then I've always been a big fan of house music. So there's always house music around. And even when I start listening to the songs, if I go in order, I can exactly remember the moment I was when I liked the song.
Brings you back
what I was
to memory.
Yes, exactly. What I was feeling at that moment, if it was something fun, it was something hurtful. So for me, music as design is a transformative element. And I always try to use it to find inspiration in my mind. But when I want to find like sources of like visual inspiration, honestly, I like to take walks. I like to go around. Um, I like to see, I'm very visual, so I like to see things that are outside architecture, for example, fashion. I follow so many fashion designers, and I have so many friends in here that work in fashion. I love how to see how their minds work, how their attention to detail can be sometimes even more obsessive than my attention to details. So sometimes I'm like, okay, I want to learn from that. I want to learn maybe what things I'm missing from the things I do. People in general can be very inspirational, to hear someone's story or their success story or or what they're going through. It can give you some inspiration. But I think my mains is music, reading, and going out, just being outside.
So one last thing, what's your biggest words of wisdom or advice for people wanting to go into your field?
I would say, and just as a personal experience, because of course my path it has never been one thing. It will never be a constant line. Never in design. Don't expect that. It has always been up and down, up and down. There's moments that I've been like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I should have studied something technical. I should go to banking or something. Come without expectations, but always with good intention. If you actually want to do something with purpose that will serve not only a personal purpose, but a purpose for the world or your community or your company, call it however you want. If you come with that good intention of serving a purpose, I am sure you will always find a place in the design world that will accommodate you, or that you will create a very cozy niche for yourself. So that is my first advice, because yes, of course, at the beginning you think you know everything, and then you move to a new city and you're in the top of the world, and you're like, in a year I'm gonna be the owner of my own company, or I'm gonna be the CEO of this. And sometimes design doesn't treat you that way. And there's so many variables outside what you want that you have to be open to, sometimes it's not going to happen that way, and it's okay. You just have to move on and have that intention that you want to pursue very clear. Another advice that I would give people coming to this field, into design in general, have fun. This is it's a place for expression. It doesn't matter if you do design for a company like I do, because at the end of the day we have to reach certain targets, we do have to sell, but at the end of the day you have to have fun, you have to enjoy it, you have to feel that you are here to express something that you are, and that's why they hired you. If you're doing something by yourself, let's say that you don't work for a company, but you're doing your own projects, or something more artistic, like exhibitions or hello. All good? Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Good, no problem. So yeah, just have fun. Come and have fun, and there will be moments that you will want to throw your laptop to the wall, and but learn sometimes also that you have to step out, because sometimes we create this tunnel vision where we're so stressed that we don't see anything apart from that. Have fun, but at the moment that the fun stops, go back take a breather, and then go in again.
Good words of wisdom. So to end, can you please like shout out, I don't know if you have an Instagram or a website or where people can find you and talk to you?
Yes. Well, if you're in Shanghai, by any chance, you can always come visit me in our store in Namfulu, in the heart of the French Concession. It's a very well-known street full of restaurants, so come have a coffee and then come inside. I'm always on the 3rd floor. I have my own personal Instagram, which is at Penelope Valdez J. It's very long. I have a very long name. So yeah, I post my personal life in Shanghai, but also a lot of our projects and what we are like doing day to day in Indio, and also personal projects. So yeah, and I think that's most of my social media that I am active.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. This has been fun, and well, hopefully at some point the borders will open and then you can also visit us, Nicole.
Of course.